Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about prediction and how we're able to predict using what? Eclipses and the nakshatras. It's so important to be able to make predictions, specific predictions as I have done. You've got to use these nakshatras, and the most important variable I believe in prediction has to deal with eclipses. Because what are eclipses? Eclipses are simply when the sun and the moon come together with Rahu or Ketu. Now we have two eclipses, solar eclipses, a year, always 6 months apart. But the nakshatras that they're in are really descriptive on what will be happening. Now when we talk about eclipses and the moon and the sun and Rahu and Ketu, eclipses are where the sun and the moon line up with the nodes. But the nodes are actually relatively why the planets create eclipses. In other words, the darkening of light. So what is Rahu and Ketu? Rahu is the north node of the moon and Ketu is the south node of the moon. And they are where the moon crosses the ecliptic. So Rahu is where the moon crosses the ecliptic going upward, and Ketu is where the moon crosses the ecliptic going downward. What is the ecliptic? It's the apparent path of the sun around Earth. So if you take that path of the sun and you look at where the moon crosses it, that's Rahu. Upwards, it brings us into the world, and Ketu, it brings us out of this world. But Rahu and Ketu are always, of course, exactly opposite by degree and minute. So they're almost like a pole or an axis. And they're always, of course, in the exact opposite signs. So every year you will have the eclipse happen with Rahu and one with Ketu, exactly 6 months apart. But I wanted to bring to your attention the book that I talk about this most explicitly. I love this book, and I talk about the eclipses, Rahu and Ketu, as they go through all of the different nakshatras. Now remember, for Rahu and Ketu to go through all 12 of the signs and nakshatras, it takes 18.5 years. That's why you hear me talking about, well, go back to 18.5 years ago to see what the eclipse caused in your life then. That will give you a picture of what you can expect now. So what is that book I'm talking about? I'm talking about this book, which I wrote in 2017, Rahu and Ketu, Our Karmic Destiny Through Eclipses. And in this book, I go into great details about where Rahu and Ketu may be in your chart and what that would mean for you. I go through when Rahu and Ketu is conjunct planets in a chart. But most of all, I have a chapter about world events. And I talk about Rahu and Ketu through all of the nakshatras and the signs and what world events happened. And in this book, I went forward and made a prediction for the year of 2020. So in this book, on page 31, I have highlighted major points for this prediction. So going to page 131, here it says, from February 8th to March 23rd of 2020, Mars will be in Sagittarius with Jupiter. On February 25th, Mars will conjoin Ketu in Mula, while Rahu is in Ardra. This could be a time for catastrophic events. And further on down it says, events are building to this time of tragedy, Ardra, and destruction, Mula. And further down, I put, at this writing in 2017, awareness on the planet Earth is very low. So I wanted to go into how I was able to make those predictions from the chapter that I'm calling this from, which I go through all of the signs and nakshatras historically. So one of the nakshatras that are going to give the most devastating results, of course, it has always been Ardra and Mula. Now, I've gone through this over and over. I don't want to be too repetitious, but I want to point out some other nakshatras that have had catastrophic events in history. And, well, first of all, just to recap, right now, of course, in 2020, we have Rahu and Ardra at Ketu and Mula. What is it? What's happened? This horrendous virus, coronavirus, going back 18 and a half years ago when they were in the same placements was September 11, 2001. Going back 18 and a half years ago from that was the AIDS virus in 82. 18 and a half years from that was the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963. And prior to that, 1945, was the bombing of Hiroshima. And even when I went back to 1927, there was one of the biggest earthquakes that hit China. And another interesting point was when I looked at, we're looking right now where Rahu is in Ardra and Ketu is in Mula, but when we flip-flop that around and we have Ketu in Ardra and Rahu in Mula, which is actually going to be 9 years after because it's half of the 18 and a half year cycle, it's another time of tragedy because Ketu in Ardra and Rahu being in Mula is almost just as bad. And what happened was one of those time frames that I pointed out in the book was 1918. And it was the time of one of the most catastrophic viruses that hit and killed over 50 million people in the world. This was devastating. And this pandemic was really before they had penicillin. So this was like, until they had their remedy for this killed so many people. So this flu pandemic was probably worse. And it was called the Spanish flu. So going back to any time that we had Rahu or Ketu in nakshatras that are ruled by Rahu and Ketu, those have been primarily the worst. So what are those nakshatras that we're looking at? Because when you look at Ardra, Rahu being in Ardra, well, the nakshatras are ruled by planets just like the signs are ruled by planets. So each nakshatra is ruled by a sign. But when you get these nakshatras in the signs that are ruled by them, it intensifies the nodes tenfold. So looking at Rahu, Ardra is ruled by Rahu. Ketu is ruled by Mula. Mula is ruled by Ketu. So the other nakshatras to watch out for when the eclipses become really intense in these signs, it's going to be in the sign of Libra. Libra and the sign opposed that, Aries. So if you get Rahu or Ketu in the nakshatra Swati, that in Libra is ruled by Rahu. And then opposing that, if you go to Ashwini, Ashwini is another nakshatra that's ruled by Ketu. So when Rahu or Ketu go to either of those, you're going to find that intense situations of extremes and changes the world when we have eclipses in those nakshatras. There's another pair that creates these extremes, and that's going to be the nakshatra called Shatabhishak. That is ruled by Rahu, and opposing that is going to be Magha, which is ruled by Ketu. Now, Shatabhishak is in Aquarius, and Magha is in Leo, but Magha is ruled by Ketu and Shatabishak's ruled by Rahu. And when the eclipses, either Rahu or Ketu, come into this realm, you're going to find catastrophic, huge events, because the nodes of the moon are truly our destiny. They create events that seem completely out of our control and change the course and the direction of the planet, where it's all headed. And of course, wherever you have Rahu and Ketu when you were born, where they are in your chart, will always give you an indication of your direction and the focus, what you came here to do with your life. So wherever Rahu is going to predict what you came here to work on in this lifetime. Likewise, where Ketu is, I feel like Rahu's our future and Ketu's our past. Remember what I said initially, Rahu takes us into the world. Rahu is the materialistic world, where Ketu takes us out. Ketu is the exit from this world. It's the what we call the moksha karaka, which means spiritual liberation from this world. But that's taking us out of this world into another world. So looking at that, when we look at where Ketu is in your chart, that's your past. That's your past life, what you've accomplished, what you've really pretty much done, so you're really good at it. It's like your past talents, your gifts, what you came here with from what you developed in the past. But it can also be your past karmas that you're still here to heal. So these poles, Rahu and Ketu, they're exactly opposed one another. They represent these opposing signs that give you your future, your past, and what you're here to learn through. Because basically, when you look at your future and your past, what you come to is the here and now. The here and now will dictate where you're going in the future, and the past definitely has an effect on your choices that take you to the future. So the here and now is really about understanding what you've come here to learn, what your gifts, what your focus, what your lessons are, what your karmic is. Comes through understanding where your Rahu and Ketu are in your birth chart. So you can find all of this in this book, and I had a great time writing this book because I realized when I wrote it how important Rahu and Ketu are in the eclipses in terms of making major predictions for the world, as I had the courage to place in the book what I knew would occur based on my knowledge of Vedic astrology, working with Rahu and Ketu and the eclipses. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, like a consultation, or sign up for my free newsletter, go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Or if you would like to study Vedic astrology with me, I have a fantastic online university. Come join our community. Go to the website, University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.